Hi, I'm Diane Lalomia, and I invite you to join me in the kitchen for my sourdough experiment using freshly ground flour. I'm learning how to create and bake the nutritious, true whole grain breads using my Nutrimilk Classic grinder. I'll be exploring a variety of different wheat berries, from hard to soft and more conventional to ancient and heritage grains. I'll be creating a sourdough starter from wild yeast and doing test bakes, repeating a recipe over and over with different variables as I experiment and learn how to get the perfect loaf. I hope you'll come along. I'm eager to get started. Today we're going to check into an experiment I've been working on. It's sourdough with fresh milled flour. Boy, it's a double whammy, let me tell you. The learning curve? Steep. But I'm gonna keep going. Here's some different wheat berries I've collected to add to my pantry. You don't need all of these to make bread, but some are really important, and I'm gonna discuss the more important ones and the differences for you so that you can understand better about wheat. When you're making bread, it'll call for a bread flour. It's looking for a hard wheat variety. When you're buying wheat berries for bread, you want to get a hard wheat, whether it be a red hard wheat or a white hard wheat. Either one works for bread. It has a high enough protein to make the bread rise. This is a hard red wheat. And this one is a hard white wheat. I'll hold them up next to each other so that you can see. My dog wants to go out. Either one, you can use these 50-50. You can use all red, all white. The red flour will have a nuttier, earthier taste. The white flour will be closer to your all-purpose flour for white goods. Then there is the soft white wheat, which if you're getting started, I would recommend the hard wheat be the very first one that you get if you're baking breads. However, if your basic baking consists of pies, cookies, and cakes, soft wheat is for those kind of things. Things that don't need a lot of rise like bread does, so you don't worry about the protein being high, which is low in the soft wheat varieties. Combining those two is basically could give you like an all-purpose flour, the best of both worlds. Now we're going to get into some different wheats that are considered heritage or ancient wheats. This one is one I got from the local Amish. It's called Red Fife. It was grown successfully in Canada. It's grown in Wisconsin and would be a good crop for Michigan in northern climates. The gentleman that told me about Red Fife had colon cancer and had to have a good portion of his colon and rectal area removed due to this colon cancer. And he is no longer able to eat conventional wheat, but he can eat the Red Fife. He has a problem with an intolerance. Now, another wheat is an ancient wheat. You'll hear ancient wheats. They're also a heritage or ancient wheat. This is Khorasan, which is a wheat from Iran, which is in the U.S. has been patented with the name kamut. Kamut is a trade or patented name for the Khorasan wheat berry. In order to protect the heritage of the wheat and the purity of the wheat, the kamut brand was developed to distinguish itself from any other of the wheats on the market, but it is really Khorasan. This is organic Khorasan, so All of the wheat is organic, with one exception. But this one is organic. It is another one of the ancient wheats. It is the one that in the wheat history or genealogy, the ancient wheats were first, and then spelt was the next wheat before the jump off to what we know as conventional wheat today. Spelt is still considered an ancient wheat, and it does have characteristics that have allowed for 100% spelt breads to be made. I personally haven't tried them yet, but I have tried some blends. Another wheat berry I have on my shelf is one that is known as Prairie Gold. This wheat, I got the wheat berries from my local Mennonite store, and it is not labeled as organic, but supposedly chemical free, and it really is basically an all-purpose wheat berry. So this might be an option if you can only afford one type of wheat and you want it to be able to do most anything you want. Prairie Gold is an all-purpose predominantly. It can do cupcakes, cookies, pastries, and bread. It's pretty much an all-in-one. It was recommended when I first got started to be the one to start. This is what I have used all in the past, an all-purpose flour. This particular one is not bleached. It's an unbleached flour, but it has really no bran, no germ, no health, no nutrition. It's the dead flour, but you got to have it sometimes for perhaps dusting or a tablespoon or something in gravy, and you don't want to grind. You still got that. Okay, so I'm going to show you some books that I happen to have hanging around from who knows how long. These are oldies but goodies. Sourdough cookbook and bread cookbook. I don't know if you have these or not, but even though it's a sourdough cookbook, they're still using the yeast. You know, this kind of stuff. This, for me, is a problem. I don't want to eat bread with store-bought yeast. It causes me digestive issues. I need the nutrition from the fresh milled flour, and I need to be nice to my yeast population that's already in my gut microbiome, and it seems to have competition it doesn't need. So instead of having that, I'm making sourdough. Well, because it's an experiment, I got a journal so I can write down what I'm doing, when I'm doing it, how I'm doing it, and gee, by chance, recipes. Speaking of recipes, I printed off a lot of recipes online, and I've got a variety of recipes and information, but it's still lacking because half of the recipes are sourdough recipes, but they're using all-purpose flour. And then the other half of the recipes are like fresh milled flour, but then they're using the instant yeast. I can't seem to find a combination of using fresh milled flour and sourdough to follow as a start. There's been a few, but they're really lacking. So that's where the experiments come in, combining two recipes to try to make one successful loaf of bread. It ain't easy. Did you see last night's experiment? Didn't come out so well. The bread stuck to the sides of the glass pan, and I couldn't get it out without making a total wreck of my loaf. It'll end up as breadcrumbs as soon as I finish filming this. I'll make a lot of breadcrumbs. I got 2 loaves. I think from now on, I'll be smart and make 1 loaf recipes until I get the hang of this sucker. It's a real challenge, let me tell you, but I'm gonna do it. Even my mistakes taste pretty good. These weren't exactly what I'd call number 1 biscuits, or rather buns. They turned out a little flatter than I'd like, but hey, they're pretty good and they work. They delivered that barbecue pork last night just fine and dandy, and tasted good in the process. Well, here we go. Breadcrumbs for Thanksgiving turkey. Well, we'll need them. Stay tuned. Hopefully we'll have more success in the kitchen. Epiphany. I had a tip from another member in a Facebook bread group to check out a video on YouTube in reference to my dilemma and learned how to make the best solution, at least for me. And I made my own bread pan grease, following her recipe on YouTube at Elly's Everyday Wholegrain Sourdough. Check it out. I decided to get out of the kitchen and get out of the studio and enjoy the local fall colors. I feel so blessed to have this natural beauty all around me and enjoy the change of seasons. Doing errands is quite a treat this time of year, and I enjoy going along the back roads to get there. Well, back to the grind. Freshly ground flour is very thirsty, and recipes will seem really liquidy. Well, this is pretty normal. Muffins were where I started, working with freshly ground flour. Nothing too complicated, and I had a recipe that used freshly milled flour to guide me. Next time we meet, I'll introduce you to my starter. Or should I say starters? I call them the Yeasty Boys. Join me as I navigate this less traveled road of baking. It seemed like I was in the dark, even after baking for so many years when I started this journey. I hope to shed some light on the subject of baking a natural, nutritious sourdough bread made with freshly ground flour. And until next time, thanks for watching, and may you be blessed with your bakes.